Healing Step to Wellness. I'm Dr. J.
And I am May, your trusted guide to whole person health
One step
and one bite at a
at
time.
a time.
Well, welcome to Healing Steps to Wellness with May and Dr. J. It's a space rooted in science, guided by compassion. And this podcast explores how lifestyle medicine empowers individuals and the communities to to thrive. And we are very grateful to have Dr. Sue to be our guest today. So, Dr. Jay, would you like to give us short introduction about Dr. Sood?
Yeah, Dr. Amit Sood is a globally recognized expert in resilience, mindfulness, and emotional well-being. Dr. Sood is based in Rochester, Minnesota. We always have to emphasize Minnesota, not New York. And so, um, Dr. Sood's resume is several pages long.
It's
We'll
true.
have Dr. Su to give us a short description of himself.
Oh,
Welcome.
thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's truly a privilege to talk to you both, who I am very fond of, both as individuals and as professionals. You're making a remarkable impact in the communities that you touch, May and Dr. J. So, my the way I look at myself, I'm a student of resilience and well-being professionally, and I've been a student of resilience and well-being all my life, and will stay the same. And along the journey, I learned a few lessons, made a few mistakes, and I like to share them with an open heart and good intentions. With a little bit of an accent, obviously. I'm married for 33 years to my lovely wife. We have two princesses and I should call him a prince of our 5-year-old dog, Simba. He just celebrated fifth birthday. So two daughters and a boy, and so that's me. I'm happy to talk to you. Uh, my work has been mostly in resilience and well-being, of in relationships, and of late I'm focusing more on helping youth, helping children.
Yes. So because your work has touched so many lives, and just like you just mentioned, can you share a bit about your personal journey? What inspired you to focus on this resilience and emotional well-being?
Yeah, as a teenager, I remember struggling with a neurological condition, and I witnessed one of the worst industrial disaster that mankind has seen in my hometown, Bhopal. So I thought the rest of the world, Western world in particular, but rest of the world would be a very happy place. But as I grew out of my high school years and really started looking at people, I was just confused by the amount of pain and emotional pain in particular that people were facing. And so I got curious and started studying that, and I realized that human brain was not designed as a happy instrument. It was designed for survival and safety.
Mm.
So I thought that'll be a good thing to explore. And then there were a few realizations that happened along the way. One thing I realized was that this entire multi-trillion healthcare industry is only impacting 20% of health outcomes. 80% of the health outcomes really depend on lifestyle, on environment, on education, on connections, on stress, and all of the things that you emphasize. So I thought it'll be good to sort of expand into that area. The second was obviously the disconnect between emotional and material well being that I saw. And then in the early 2000s, I saw a tremendous surge in technology, which I could see was going to overload our brain and is going to create a lot of sort of cognitive and emotional overload that our brain was not designed to lift.
Hmm.
So I I shouldn't say I knew it, but I sort of had a feeling that mental health is going to be the biggest challenge that we will face in this century. And so I realigned my work and started focusing most on that from early 2000s. And so it has been almost a 20-year journey now, um, inspired by and informed by all that was happening around me.
Wow. So how long you have been in Rochester, living as a Rochester, Minnesota resident?
2003 onwards, so it has been 22 years now.
Wow. And then so how does this community specifically um like, influence of your work and also your mission as you kind of start off this journey when you were high school from what you see and then your hometown. Can you share with us about your now probably consider Rochester is your second hometown right now?
Oh yeah, of course. It is. So when I go where I was born, I feel like I'm going home. But when I come back, I feel like I'm coming back home.
Mm,
So home is well. There's an old saying, "Home is where mom is." So, and Rochester has wonderful moms, not mine, but of many other kids, and they are very thoughtful. So I think there've been three phases when I look at Rochester and its influence on me and why I absolutely love this city. The first was support. And so when I came, I felt embraced and loved, not judged. I was insecure. My language was a little rough or unclear. I was not abreast with technology or Mayo Clinic ways, and I was completely accepted and embraced and valued for what I brought. And of course, Rochester has been phenomenally supportive for us to raise our two kids. I
mm-hmm,
think it is truly the best place in the world if you want to
mm-hmm,
raise
mm-hmm,
wonderful children.
mm-hmm.
That was the first sort of phase. The second phase was inspiring. So I find Rochester supportive. I find Rochester very inspiring. And a lot of
Mm,
that has to do with Mayo Clinic. In Mayo Clinic, you are surrounded by true sages of the
mm-hmm,
world, physicians, researchers, administrators who are I don't know what is better about them. Is it their brilliance or their compassion or their professionalism? They're just, I haven't seen people like what I saw at Mayo Clinic in terms of the amazing people, one after the other. I felt um, humbled. I felt overwhelmed with the excellence and the professionalism and kindness I saw. And certainly that really fashioned my outlook towards life and profession. So the inspiring phase was there, which really sort of inspired me to create something new, work harder, and certainly changed my personality also a little bit. And the third one was empowered. And again, Rochester is a very empowering place where there is. Even though it's a smaller town, there is room for new ideas, fresh ideas. I brought interesting, I think, ideas, well meaning ideas, but they were different and they were embraced. And I was empowered to develop them and test them and disseminate them. I've been to most churches here, almost all the schools here, and so many community groups, including obviously what you run. Dr. J and May. So I would say Rochester, I would capture in three words: supportive, inspiring, and empowering.
wow.
Wow. I
Well said.
remember when I started out my fellowship at Mayo in 1999, I was told that part of the reason for Mayo greatness was because the weather was so cold, you have nothing to do. But but anyway, so you have been teaching about resilience, and you mentioned that the skill is just like can be cultivated. So when you teach the skill of resilience, mindfulness, do you find any some sort of misconception that people will have?
Yeah, so I think the biggest misconception is that if I am learning resilience, that means I do not have resilience. So my question is, when you're going to the gym, who is going to the gym? Is it the weakest people going to the gym or the stronger people going to the gym? And most of the time when I go to the gym, I come out a little bit depressed or disappointed because I've got all these strong people in the gym, right? Who are lifting 250 pounds, right? So I think this is a misconception. Resilience is not binary. It is not whether you have it or do not have it. It's on a continuum. And most people who are open to building resilience are already very resilient in their own way. So I think the other misconception is that if I'm building on resilience, that means I am saying I'm not going to change what is causing me stress. Or if my organization is asking me to build resilience, that means they won't change anything else. No, that's not the case. I think I've wandered the planet long enough to know that there is no single system change that will take away our stress like forever tomorrow. Anything we do has unintended consequences. So anytime an administrator or a leader comes and says, "Oh, we're going to change this, which will fix the burnout," I'm smiling at their ignorance. And anytime someone asks me or challenges me, why should I work on my resilience? They should fix the system first. Say, well, good luck being stressed all your life. So
Mhm.
I think it's like a bicycle. You've got two wheels on a bicycle. One is you fix the system. Two is you help yourself. So this again, this binary divide, when I'm working on me, that means the system will not take care of me. That is a misconception in resilience. Resilience is all the other misconception, and it's rare. No, resilience is very common. And I think majority of the people are not even aware how strong they are or how much support they have. I hope you have never gone through a very difficult situation in life, but if you do, you experience, and this is what happens over and over in towns like Rochester, where the whole community comes to support you. Right. So it's researcher Dr. Maston calls it ordinary magic. So those are some common misconceptions. It's not binary. You can build it. You can work on it concurrently with reducing your stressor. It's almost like if you have a thorn in your finger. Uh, uh, you take your thorn out, but if it is hurting, you also take Tylenol. So you sort of do both. You fix the problem and you support yourself. Um, yeah, I could go longer, but I think that would be plenty.
Oh, wow. Um, so, Dr. Su, you also have extensive experience working with the big corporate team across the country and in local communities. So, what are the most effective strategies for building the resilience? Since you talk about the resilience and help us understand that. So, especially in the high stress environment.
Yeah, so I use a three sort of themes that encapsulate most of what one can do, and also respects the challenges that we are facing. So the first step there is to recognize. And from recognition, what I mean to say is try to understand, why are we stressed? Why are we challenged? What is going wrong? And let me understand it at a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, with respect to burnout, many of my wonderful colleagues at Mayo, like Dr. Colin West and others, have really pioneered. They are world leaders in understanding what is the prevalence of burnout and challenges that health
Mm-hmm.
providers face, and what are the underlying reasons, what are the
Mm-hmm.
drivers of it.
Mm-hmm.
That is critical information in a company,
Mm-hmm.
in an organization. I think it's very important to know, why are we struggling before we start solving it. Sometimes we start solving it without asking that question fully. So that
Mm-hmm.
awareness piece, that recognition piece, is very important because your
Mm-hmm.
solutions are tailored to that recognition. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the first piece. And I've sat on boards and led the board of a very large company, 300,000 employees, and that was the first thing we asked. Okay, Okay, let's understand the problem and let's understand the solutions we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
The second aspect is to, uh, okay, now if I can recognize, is there something I can do to remove the problem, cure the problem before I go into my emotional reframing? So, as I was saying, if I have a thorn in my finger,
Mm-hmm.
torn out, I won't take ibuprofen. If I have pneumonia, I should not be taking Tylenol. I need to know
Mm-hmm.
you can't cure pneumonia with Tylenol, right? So I think you try to really address the problem before
Mm-hmm.
you go into emotional strategies in whatever problem that can be addressed. You will be very annoyed if you go to a physician with dizziness and the physician says, oh, may I just accept it, dizziness is common. You say, no, I've come to know why is this happening and what can
Mm-hmm.
I do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the third step or third big bucket is reframing. So recognize, remove, reframe. Reframe is,
Mm.
how can I think about it differently? How can I, now that I have the problem, like there was a tornado, there were a series of tornadoes in Rochester a few weeks ago. Um, I'm not going to open my chest and go and fight a tornado. I will just say, I'll reframe it. Well, some places have hurricanes, some places have
Mm-hmm.
forest fires. My town has an occasional tornado. That is how life is. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
pack my bags and leave Rochester, Minnesota because there was a
Mm-hmm.
tornado. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm reframing. I'm focusing on what is
Mm-hmm.
right within what seems wrong. I'm
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the fact that I can accept it. Sometimes I'm finding meaning behind it. Sometimes I'm even grateful that there is a tornado. There was a tornado, but it didn't touch anybody, it didn't take any life.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, Mayo Clinic was formed as a result of a bad tornado. So those are the three steps I take for any problem in life. I first recognize what the problem is. To the extent I can remove the challenge, remove the stressor. And if I cannot remove the stressor, or I can only partially remove the stressor, then I reframe it. So
Mm-hmm.
that it is not as much of a hurt for me.
So it sounds like it's very important that we work on ourselves inside our head, so to speak. So would you be able to define self-care? What self-care is? What can we do? Any strategy for us to be have a more self-awareness, build up our self-care, and for our own well-being?
Yeah, so self-care is broader than what a lot of people, broader and deeper. Um, so the simplest definition that works for me is taking care of my body, brain, and soul. And when I take care of all three, then I am taking care of myself. So it spans, eating healthy, making sure that I have good core strength, making sure I don't have sarcopenia, making sure that you know I you know you drive your cars and you try to fill the best gas in the car. Then why am I feeling high fructose corn syrup in my physical body, which is
Mm-hmm.
like, treat your physical body like it is one of the rare, highly expensive model. If you had a Porsche or something, you're not going to put bad fuel in it. Resting, obviously, through sleep and other measures. I mean, so that's the physical aspect, and that is taking care of body and brain. But then there is also taking care of your soul, your spirit, which is having a strong sense of purpose driving your life, having forgiveness for yourself and for others, nurturing compassion and acceptance for yourself and for others, and for people so inclined, faith in a hopeful construct towards life, something that gives you hope. It could be religious based, it could be nature based, or something else, but having some hopeful construct. So that is self-care to me comprehensively. And there is obviously the financial aspect and the occupational aspect and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
balancing and all that. But beyond that, self-care is also taking care of me, my my community, and planet at large. Because, you know, we're like in this big space, on this big spaceship, which is planet Earth. Now, if you're in an airplane, and let's say you're sitting in seat, 24D, something that happens at 12A is going to impact you eventually. If there is somebody who's sick at 12A, that the plane might be rerouted, which will impact your plans. So everybody affects everybody else. So caring for others to some extent is also self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Caring for environment is self-care. When I care for your son, who I met, your wonderful son, and if I think about him and I want him to succeed, I'm sort of taking care of my own kids, because I am sure your kid and my kid is going to connect at some point, and they will be in college together, or they'll be in graduate program together, or something like that. So self-care is very broad, and I think the more life gives to you. Now, if there is a patient who has advanced cancer, it is difficult for them to think about planet Earth at that moment. They are in the survival mode. But if you are lucky enough that you have a healthy body and mind, and if you have resources, then I think the broader your diameter of self, the better. Uh, I think it's very important for us, for many of us who are fortunate enough to think more broadly than just for ourselves, to identify others' pain with our well-being. And because if we don't do that, then the planet will become a lonely place, which is what is happening.
So I'm glad you mentioned about the spiritual aspect, because at the beginning of your introduction, you talk about in the high school time, and you notice the pain, the suffering. It actually reminded me Buddha, how Buddha gave up being a prince and went into the self-discovery like that.
Yes, obviously we are, none of us are anywhere near, but we can be inspired by his passion, the passion of Buddha and the passion of Christ. I think both of them had tremendous passion to transform the world around them. They were really affected by pain and suffering of others, and they both lived a very other-centric life. Um, and we need more people on the planet to be that way. We can only sort of learn from their stories and emulate and do our best to the extent we can. But thank you for mentioning that, because I think we have phenomenal role models who have left their footsteps for us to follow.
Well, so beautiful. This is how I see why so many people touched by your teaching, because the way how you describe the self-care, um, it is so profound. It's not just about ourself, which, just our individual, but you expand that in a very wider view. And it is so true that when you never know in such a the planet, it could be so huge as what we see, but it can be a small world. A lot of time we run to each other. We just like, hey, we connected before, or our parents connected, and we connected in somewhere, some part in the world. And then also I hear from you for emotional health, for resilience, those teaching. Um, it's just like what we emphasize as a lifestyle medicine. First of all, you need to identify where is your discomfort, where the chronic disease is coming from, why you have the symptom, so we can treat the root cause. And if we are trying everything and you still, we, still, if we can eliminate or reduce some of the discomfort, but we still have some pain, but how we shift the way how we think and to reduce the suffer, switch our focus. So um, you have so many books that provide the teaching principle, all this kind of a principle in in many focus. And recently, you published a book with a very interesting title. It's called "It Takes You to Tango." Can you share with us about the book and why you use that title?
Yeah, thank you. So, I've been observing the rise in loneliness on our planet, despite us being the most populous we have ever been. And I was also looking at research on what can help loneliness, and I realized that loneliness is not increased in clinical trials by just increasing social connections. We're not able to help loneliness by enhancing self-compassion, though, and self-acceptance and self-forgiveness. Loneliness tends to go down. And people who are the most lonely are the ones who have low self-acceptance and low self-compassion. So what I realized was that we have it a little bit upside down. I think we're trying to treat internal loneliness with external connections. So I think the bigger loneliness is people's inability to connect with and befriend themselves. And so I saw the dance of tango, and tango is traditionally two people dancing together.
Mhm.
And my thing was, I am my best friend, and I alone can dance tango with myself as my best friend. And so I love connection. I'm happily married. I have many, many friends, hundreds of friends, globally, and I feel loved. Yet, um, I'm just happy if you leave me on the other side of the moon. If you leave me there for like 4 weeks, you will alone, you will find me coming back smiling because I like to enjoy my brain. And that's what I tell sometimes my family if they say, we're leaving you alone at home. Oh, no, 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 I'm with myself. And I really enjoy my brain because I'll think positive. I'll think about something nice that I could do, or think about previous kind actions, or some positive construct. So that's where it came from. It is really to empower the individual. It is not, I'm not saying we do not depend, we are absolutely interdependent. It is decreasing our dependence on others for our
Mhm.
happiness. It is everybody is eventually, if everybody is truly happy and content and feel worthy within themselves, then we will start supporting each other and not seek energy from others. So that's where it is going.
Yeah, that's very nice. I always feel that regardless what phase of the life we're in, there are times we'll be alone. This in the day, in the week, no matter what, we'll be alone. So you really need to, and we are the only one who will be with us for the rest of our lives. And that's why I really feel that I need to be able to, accept myself, work with myself, like myself, at least. So and I know also the process of writing a book is a big job. And you probably do a lot of this research, discovery. So when you prepare writing this book, is there any transformative insight that you find? And also, are there any stories that you feel that would especially resonate with the readers?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So I think one of the clear, uh, profound insight for me was um, understanding how much inner loneliness is there in the society, the invisible suffering, invisible loneliness. About 80% of the people struggle with imposterism. 80% struggle with low self-worth. 80% do not have adequate self-compassion. That number kept coming, between 70 to 80%. So vast majority of us, only about 20 to 30% people are thriving. So that was an amazing insight. And of course, the excessive comparisons about 70 to 80% of us do on social media and other places. That many number of workers feel overwhelmed at work. Uh, and so I was once traveling overseas. So you're talking about a story, and uh, I mean, there's a lot of guilt in our society also. Parents feel guilty. People
Mhm.
who have enough resources feel guilty. We look at the world and look at suffering and famine and poverty everywhere. We feel guilty about that. So I was traveling and it was very hot. It was like 106, 108 degrees. The roads were so hot that you could crack an egg and it'll turn into an omelet right there. And so there I saw a kid walking bare feet, and he was almost dancing because he didn't have any shoes. And that really touched me deeply. And so I went to a shoe store, and it was a smaller shoe store, and I bought the entire shoe store. And
Oh,
I took all the shoes and sandals and I drove around the town and distributed to anywhere who I found bare feet. And that took away my guilt, at least in that moment, that I have comfortable shoes while so many do not. So that story reminds me that one of the best ways to transform your guilt is to not sit alone and feel guilty, but convert that into action, a compassionate action. So when you feel guilty, convert that into compassionate action instead of just sitting alone with guilt.
wow! You bought the shoes from the entire store, from all the shoes from the store.
You should have seen the face of the store owner.
Oh.
Crazy. Who does that? Who buys the entire? Thankfully, I had the resources at that time, and the place where I was, they were not that expensive, and
Hmm.
so I could do that. But yeah, he looked like I was crazy, but yeah, and maybe I was.
And I feel like the random of the kindness, sometimes even something very small, even like for myself, I receive a very kind note from a girl, teenager, whenever I went, in an event, and even she kind of slide you a note after all you done with the event, and then you finally had a chance to bring up that note, and it's just very rewarding, kind of a touch your heart, like, I love your dress, I love your hair, I love your smile, as simple as that. And so I kind of remember, I remember one of your teaching is um, gratitude, be kind. And it doesn't take us any financial burden to deliver the kindness and then express the gratitude anytime we can. So you are very good in teaching, a very practical, small tips for everybody to practice every day. So you want to share with us that what are the the tips that you use in your daily life that you kind of help yourself find um, no, like a happiness, and that you feel like it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, I thank you. So what I like to do is, if I had to put one word, I'd like to live life a little bit deeper than
Mm,
what the superficial details show, both externally and internally. And so that entails, so the way I like to experience my days when I wake up, I like to remember a few people to whom I'm grateful. And I start with my wife as the first person. And interestingly, spousal gratitude is one of the strongest predictors of happiness in marriage. So, not that I don't annoy my wife, and I do, I'm sure, and I certainly, well, I would say she's amazing. There's nothing about her that needs to be changed, um, but but we are all humans, right? And so there are moments you say, oh, I wish this would have been said differently. But I think the underlying theme of gratitude, feeling grateful for your partner, changes the energy with which you connect. So that's how I like to
Mhm.
start my day.
Mhm.
And then I like to notice novelty throughout the day. I am I just totally believe in take time to smell the roses. So I like to examine a flower that has dropped on the floor and look at its petals. I would pause to look at a small weed growing from a crack in the pavement, because that was one moment actually that was transformative for me about 15, 18 years ago, when I was nothing was going right. I was dejected, and there was this little weed, it was a little, and it had thrown a flower. And like I said, okay, this little plant has no hope of being admired or valued, or converting it into seeds and propagate, but it is doing its thing. It is doing what nature assigned it to do, and so that's what I should do. I shouldn't worry about success, etc. I should just do my thing. So that's what happens when you cultivate curiosity for the ordinary. So I like to live a very curious day throughout the day. Then when I look at people throughout the day, I like to see them as special and having struggles. I know that in about 100 milliseconds, my the animal within me, the selfish being within me, judges the other people very quickly, and that's not healthy. So I have trained myself that the moment I see another human being, my first instinct is, I wish you well. I'm praying for you right now. I don't know, you may be having a perfect life, you may be struggling inside, but I know everybody is struggling. So that has really uh, truly um, taken my connection with people I know, people I don't know, to a very different level. Um Almost, it takes a lot for me to get upset or annoyed at a person. The other day I was crossing the street, not here but East Coast, and I bumped into somebody, and he gave me a very nice F letter, and I was like, oh, I really smiled, and I actually enjoyed it, because I haven't heard those beautiful words directed at me directly for some time. And I just wished him well, that he has a better day, and so on. And then I usually end my day praying for someone I saw during the day who I feel is struggling. Because when you've done everything, you close your eyes, you're trying to sleep at night, you have mostly self-referential thoughts. What should I do
Mhm.
tomorrow? I mean, it's just, so I sort of narrow it down to, okay, I met this person, and I know they're struggling with this diagnosis. And so everybody right now who has a child with this diagnosis, I'm just praying for them.
Mhm.
So I like to live a very intentional day throughout the day. So there isn't a single practice, but I'd like to experience my day, convert my routine moments into a deep experience. So, for example, if I'm throwing garbage, which was yesterday in my community, Wednesday, I at that time when I'm collecting garbage, I sort of think about, okay, what garbage thoughts do I have in my head that I can throw ceremonially in this garbage to go into the landfill? When there is water coming in through the faucet, many times when I'm filling my cup with water, I'm like, okay, there is grace coming into my home with this water. So I try to convert ordinary life into a deeper
Mhm.
experience.
Mhm.
Wow.
So beautiful.
Okay, now I have a lot of things to do now. So
I have a lot of things to do, Dr. Sood. I have a lot of things to practice on my end.
yeah,
Well, I have about 1,000 weeks left on the planet, so I
Wow.
wanna live them intentionally. We don't 1,000 to 1,500 weeks, so I want to make the most of every week that I have on the planet.
Wow. I I hope I hope this message can travel as far as we can. We all do. And this can bring a very profound impact on children, the school, parents. The the world will become more beautiful. It is so simple. It is so simple, but we all need to hear the message, and we can be mindful, living our life deeply with intention. So beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you.
So,
Mm.
so Dr. Su, you have been a speaker for the Lotus Health Foundation Community Awareness Symposium for the last 2 years, and also when we just started out um, 6 years ago. And how would you feel that your teaching and your principle will coincide or with the Lotus Health Foundation's symposium?
Oh, we're very much aligned. I found great energy, coming to your symposium. People have shared message of hope and healing and health all combined together, and through living harmoniously with nature and with themselves, with the core of who they are. I haven't heard every speaker, but every speaker I have talked to and connected with, I've found tremendous positive energy amongst the participants. I have seen people really resonating with your ideas. And I think what you're doing is really filling or completing or actually fulfilling a gap, meeting a gap in what healthcare is providing right now. Um, Unfortunately, healthcare has become healthcare industry, and it is so much towards taking care of the sick rather than preventing. And what you're doing is going to actually improve the cost of healthcare eventually in the long term, which healthcare is not realizing. So I've absolutely loved coming to your conferences. I've found great energy, great camaraderie, great alignment of values and ideas. So I'm really grateful that you've invited me.
Oh,
Thank
you are
you.
so kind. You are so kind. We are so fortunate to have you. We are so
Um,
well. Do you have, Dr. Su? Do you currently do you have any exciting project on hand and that you feel like you would like to share with the community?
Absolutely. One of the things I have noticed is we hear a lot about children's mental health, how it is struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Headlines
Mm-hmm.
talks about, the effect on of social media and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I travel in different parts of the US and rest of the world and talk to people, go to my kids' college and schools, I see a lot of kids who are thriving, who are doing well. So, and I've been also we have been very intentional in raising our daughters. So I asked the question, what is going right? What is happening in the homes of kids who are doing well? And I've tried to capture that. And I'm actually working on a book with my 20-year-old daughter, who is a senior in college. And it's called Parenting in Pencil: How to Raise uh, Stress Smart, Screen Savvy Children. Uh, so parenting in pencil, like pencil. So it's flexible, it's accommodating, it's humble,
Mm-hmm.
and how to be like a student parent. So I think empowering parents, because two-thirds of the kids experience ACE events, adverse childhood events. Uh, uh, Difficulty in parenting is perhaps the single most important, biggest
Mm-hmm.
public health problem in the US
Mm-hmm.
at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Over 40% of adult depression is because of difficult childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on
Mm-hmm.
developing a model of uh, parenting which
Mm-hmm.
has elements of resilience, has elements of a lot of what I have learned over the years. And the goal is to nurture children's attention, children's emotions, children's motivation, make sure they have a healthy relationship with technology, make sure they are self-loving instead of self-loathing, and to make sure they have good set of skills to handle the stressors they will be facing tomorrow. So that's what I'm doing.
Parenting is absolutely difficult. You have the
Mhm.
best intention for the kids. It's a fine balance between loving them but not spoil them. And
Mm-hmm.
then there is no instruction, direction on how to parent your kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's really
Mm-hmm.
tough, and every kid is
Mm-hmm.
different.
Mm-hmm.
I like to hear that people have that saying that you put a whole bag of popcorn into the pot. They don't pop at the same time. Now you can just do the same way, same teaching for every single one of them. You just can't. And so it's make parenting so difficult. It's not me making excuses that for my two of my children, but it's really tough. It's really tough. I don't want to scare them. I still want to have grandkids, so I don't want to scare them.
We have
Yeah,
two popcorns. They pop differently.
yeah, that's a very wisely way of putting it, Dr. J. Parenting is there is though a method to that madness. I think uh, e- everything easy that is today is easy because someone worked hard at it to make it easy. You and I are wearing eyeglasses, all three of us. And it's very easy to get eyeglasses, but 300 years ago, it was difficult to fix your, eye problems. But it is easy because someone worked very hard to understand it and make it easy. I think the same thing is for parenting. Been we've been parenting for a very long time, but we have not been formally thinking about parenting for long enough.
Mhm.
So my hope is that we're able to give a method to this madness so that it becomes easier. Just like when you arrive in a new city, and if you have no idea, you'll be like, how do I go? Where? What do I do? But the moment you have a map of the city and someone explains to you that, okay, this is how the city is organized, suddenly it starts looking so much better, right? I
Mm.
was in Redwood Forest many years ago, and I had no idea what I was doing. Then we joined a group that had a guide, and suddenly the whole forest came alive. I could clearly see the patterns, and so that's how I think um, I went into parenting without any guide, any thoughtful sort of. I just went into it, and I said, I'll figure it out. But uh, I think it is good these days to learn from someone who has been through the journey and who is not speaking out of ego, but really out of good intentions, and who perhaps knows a little bit about the terrain.
Mhm.
Wow,
Right?
that's a lot of things to learn, to unpack, to absorb, to really self-learn. Um, Time is running out. So, Dr. Sood, are there any tips, things you recommend um, before we go?
Well, also, I want to know, when do you plan to have the book complete?
Yeah, it should be. My goal is end of August, end of next month. But yeah, and have it somewhere around September or so. It should be out. That's my hope. And along with that, I'll create a number of programs over the coming years to support parenting. This is where I'll put a lot of my effort for the coming 10 years.
That, Dr. J, allow me to ask this one more question because we truly need to know. I believe a lot of listeners, they also want to know, especially in this community, that you have so many topics, the focus of the teaching program in around the across the country, around the world, with a corporate. But what are the training program, teaching program that specific available, say for the local community folks that be able to pay attention to? And then once you have your book released and you also have the program about the parenting, how will we know about it? Because I would love to learn, even though we are the empty nest stage right now, but I still love to know, learn.
You are never an empty nester. Once a mom, always a mom. You will always be a mom
forever.
forever. You'll always need you. You'll be a grandparent at
Mhm,
some point, and they will. You do not graduate from the
mm,
school of parenting.
mm,
This is a lifelong course.
l-
So I have a email listserv. If you go on my website, you can certainly sign up on that. So to receive information, and I'll send my LinkedIn, Amit Sood MD. If you, I announce most of the things on LinkedIn, and my website amitsood.com. I'm going to put something there too about it. LinkedIn is where is my main social media
mm,
connection because I
mhm,
just can't keep up with
yeah.
very many of them
Mhm,
anyways, and I try not to be in people's faces too much.
mhm,
I would rather have people sort of discover or stumble on, what we are
mm,
doing, because I think if you're trying to force into people's faces and put too much content out there, then you lose
mm,
quality
mm,
and also trust a little bit.
mhm,
So those are the places to find me at my website,
mhm,
amitsu.com, LinkedIn, and through the email listserv for with which
mm,
I send like one email a month or one every 2 months or
mhm,
something like that.
mhm, mhm,
Well,
I try
unless
not to sell anything. That's my thing. I've never spent money in advertising or marketing. I know that's a bad thing for scaling something, but I try not to sell anything, so that I don't want my name to be associated with dollars, and because then people lose trust, and that is the last thing I would want,
mhm.
people not to
but
trust.
people can also sign up for your daily tips, right?
Yeah, yeah. Healing, Year of Healing program. It's free 6 months, so you can sign up on the website also.
Mhm.
The Year of Healing program.
Yeah, I got that every day.
Mhm.
Oh,
Well, sorry, Dr. J, I kind of interrupted your last questions. So, you were asking Dr. Su about the anything like the tips or I lost
yeah, 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 yeah. I heard Dr. J's
everything.
question. So, um, I think I do a couple of things when I'm facing a difficult situation. I did mention to you recognize, remove, reframe.
Mhm, mhm.
But I think one of the things I do is very quickly is I try to find what is actionable here. Is there
Okay.
something actionable?
Mhm,
Can I do something about it? And if I cannot do something about it, my go-to practice is, will it matter in 5 years? If it won't matter in 5 years, it's not worth my time. My shovel, took out some of the grass in my yard. It's not going to matter in 5 years. I'm not going to be thinking about it. So there is a lot of things that happen. My mailbox crashed in the storm. I'll change the mailbox. It won't matter in 5 years. So we allow a lot of small things to bother us. It's interesting that our psychological immune system is ready for big things, but not so much for small things. And so we overreact. And then if it will matter in 5 years, I have two paths. The first path is what went right within what went wrong. So if something has gone wrong, there is something worse that could have happened. And I try to keep my calm thinking about it. Like the whole story, I was complaining of my shoes that were hurting until I saw someone who had no feet. Right. So if you have that comparison, frame of comparison, because, I want to give myself calm and happy disposition inside of me, which will help me respond to my situation. And the other thing I try to think about is, if it is going to matter in 5 years, will it matter in bigger context? And so that's where you zoom out and I think about, okay, will it matter in the context of the solar system or the Milky Way? And I've gone through challenges in my life where it's in the context of 200 billion stars in the Milky Way. What I'm going through, or this financial loss I had, is very, very small. I went through something very recently, and I said, when I zoomed out and I said, oh, not to just mention in the context of planet Earth, but in the context of Milky Way, what I've lost is so small. There's nothing worth selling my soul over. So that's what I do.
We need a few more hours.
Especially parenting, that really,
I
I
so
think that's a long deal. We should we had that. No, but thank you. I'm so glad that you are working on that and going to be available very soon. I think a lot of people will be.
we need to have you back when when the book is ready. You can
Please.
introduce the book.
Yeah, I'll be happy to talk about that because that is going to be my ongoing work for the next decade at least,
Mm.
if not rest of my life, because I think that is one of the biggest problems we
Hmm.
are facing. We have created this world for adults. Kids have been afterthought. So they are really, really struggling, and that's
Hmm.
not fair. They didn't create
Hmm.
social media, they didn't create technology, they didn't create weapons. They didn't create this excessive energy use we are doing. They didn't create so many things. They didn't destroy the environment. They didn't create the the silos we are creating, the separations, the disagreements. But they are the ones who are impacted by it. So I think we have to work together to build a better world for them.
And also for parents, because like at our generation, we live in a different culture. At the time that when we grow up, and now we have to adjust our pace and learn how to understand our children, how to shift our gear in a different way, how to be the parent and be friend. Um, I feel like as myself, I struggle a lot on how to define it, the role. It's a tough.
Yeah, I have thought through it for 20 years now, and uh, um, thankfully, I think I shouldn't say I know this, but um, I think we have been able to crack the code a little bit about using a lot of different disciplines and a lot of leveraging a lot of research that others have done before us to really organize this whole field into understanding the broad themes and then uh, proactively preventing challenges. I'm focusing on three challenges right now, which is helping kids be stress smart, screen savvy, and self loving.
Mm-hmm.
The same child, if they experience an adversity, if they are self loving, they will say, "Oh, that's okay, I'll be fine." If they are self loathing, they'll say, "Oh, I'm no use. Might as well end my life." I mean, we have lost kids in our community, and it really hurts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of that is preventable.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's what I'm focusing on as a first step, but we'll build on
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure, such a learning experience talking to Dr. Su. Um,
Wow.
yes. So
that. Thank you so
let's
much.
plan for the next time when your book is ready. Okay.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And,
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. What a privilege to have you have this deep conversation. We are so lucky to have you. Well, we also, in the meantime, that we thanks for the audience to listen to this episode. Thanks for joining us on the healing steps to wellness.
I'm Dr. J,
And I am May, guiding you toward whole
whole person
person
health,
health
one step
and one bite at a
at a
time.
time.